Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about N64 emulation on PC with Project64 Legacy, and Project64 Legacy just had its final release. Now to be clear here, Project64 Legacy is not Project64, they're two separate projects. So version 1.6.3 is the final update. They say it has been a long journey, but we have got there. We set out to finish what we started and surpassed it. With that in mind, the Project64 Legacy project is at an end. So for their last update, they've enabled a whole bunch of things, including add new, edit, and delete sheets. They've enabled file screenshot capture. They've enabled a bunch of settings dialogues, including configure graphics plugin. There's also a very important security update. They fixed a vulnerability that can allow ROMs to run arbitrary code. And as a silver lining here, with the death of Project64 Legacy, something new is about to be created. They say although Project64 Legacy is at an end, we shall be moving forward with our vision geared towards a more accuracy-centered project, without restraints of previous boundaries and limitations. Watch this space. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below, as sad as I am to see Project64 Legacy come to an end. At the same time here, I'm excited to see what's next, and as soon as I know more, you'll know more. But moving on, and we're still talking about N64 emulation, and this time we're shifting over to Mupin64RR Lua. This emulator is primarily used for TASing or TASing or subscribe to Mr. Sujanoing. TAS stands for Tool Assisted Speedrunning. Anyways, version 1.1.7 just dropped and we've got a whole bunch of new additions. So Lua graphics can now be drawn over the game without flickering. Playing a movie will now automatically load its related ROM. Playing an arbitrary frame during playback is now possible, and a whole bunch more here, including the re-implementation of zipped ROM support. And on top of all of that, there's a whole bunch of bug fixes and performance improvements. For example, general performance when no Lua scripts are running has been greatly improved. If you are curious about this one, it's 100% free open source, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Next up, this is a quick one, but a great one. If you're a fan of the original Halo 2 and you still have your old Xbox and copy of Halo 2 laying around, you might like this news. Insignia just had a massive announcement. Halo 2 will launch on Insignia in public beta on March 15th. Please ensure your console is set up and you've signed up for your gamertag. And for those who may not be aware, Insignia is a free replacement for Microsoft servers for the original Xbox console, and yes, it works with XEMU or CMU. But moving on, and next up we're talking about PlayStation 3 emulation with RPCS3, and RPCS3 just got a brand new feature. So RPCS3 has added in a search bar to the save manager, which is super helpful for games that make a whole bunch of saves. For reference here, the search bar is right at the bottom of the save manager. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Is this new feature useful? Next up, we're talking about ROM, a beautiful, powerful, self-hosted ROM manager, and this one just got a brand new update. So they've just dropped version 3.0.1, which is a hotfix release, but version 3.0.0 just came out and it implements a whole bunch of new things. So we've got emulator JS player to play retro games in your web browser. Now in terms of supported systems for that, there's a whole bunch here, but there isn't something like the N64, PlayStation, Dreamcast, or anything higher. But there is Nintendo DS here, there is Super Nintendo, there's Commodore 64, Neo Geo Pocket Color, and a whole bunch more. And in future updates, they're looking at getting the 3DO, MAME, Nintendo 64, PlayStation, PSP, Sega CD, and 32X up and running. And on top of that, emulator JS player supports saving and loading states. If you are curious about this one and wanted to learn more about it, I'll drop a link to ROM in the description below. This is 100% free and open source. Next up, we're quickly talking about some Linux stuff, specifically Raspberry Pi OS, and Raspberry Pi OS just got a brand new update. So this latest update is pretty nice. They bumped up the kernel from 6.1 to 6.6. We've got speed improvements when opening Bluetooth and network menus. They've got tweaks to display of some widgets under the dark theme, improved compatibility with alternate window managers. The shutdown assistant now closes all user processes when logging out, and a whole bunch more. Next up, this is a quick heads up and possibly a minor headache to scammers out there. WhatsApp is in the process of unveiling a brand new feature, or at least rolling it out. They're going to be blocking people from taking screenshots of profile pictures, and this will be enabled by default. Next up, I've got another quick heads up, and this is for God of War, not God of War Ragnarok. God of War is now DRM free over on GOG, and it's currently 50% off. I'll drop a link in the description below. Next up, we're talking about a couple of ROM hacks. The first one here is for Chrono Trigger on the SNES. If you're a fan of that game and wanted to get more out of it, well, this ROM hack may be of interest, and version 3.0 of Chrono Trigger Plus has just released. So with this update, Glenn is now fully playable with his own unique tech list, and on top of that, a lot of other characters have alternate appearance options. For those who may not have heard of Chrono Trigger Plus, it's a ROM hack that adds a ton of cut content back into the game, and also allows access to previously unexplorable areas. And on top of that, $19.99 is fully explorable, and they say it offers tons of stuff to do. Next up, we're talking about the Mr. FPGA. And it turns out that the N64 core has finished development. I'll drop a link to Video Game Esoterica's video in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. Almost every single game is working. There's still a handful that don't work, but at the same time, the core is in a very impressively good state. Next up, we're talking about Doom Eternal, and it appears there are some rumors circling about a long-awaited feature possibly arriving soon, and that's modding. So if we head on over to steamdb.info and take a look here at some of the changes, we can see doommodportal.exe. Interestingly, mod support was initially mentioned back in 2019 before the game actually released. It's been a while, and now it's finally possibly going to be here. It's still a rumor. And speaking about mods, next up we're talking about a mod for Resident Evil 2 Remake, and it's basically the classic camera. So this fixed camera mod just dropped on Nexus Mods, and there's also a few more options here to make things a little bit easier to play. With the fixed camera, they have enabled auto aim if you want it. There's also laser sights to make things easy as well. You can change the camera if you want, if the angles aren't to your liking, and even more. And continuing to talk about game mods, next up we're talking about something that may blow your mind. We're talking about Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, but not this game specifically. Apparently a full-size new version of this game is being made within Skyrim as a Skyrim mod. I am not joking with ya. If you're curious about this one, I'll drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. It blew my mind. This is actually Skyrim. There's guns in it. There's a frickin' helicopter. And the game looks nothing like the actual version of Skyrim. I'm not joking with you. I've got no idea how much work has went into this mod so far. It's currently in development. They are looking for modders, and at the same time here, this is impressive. To be honest with you, I've watched the trailer a few times. There are a few telltale signs that this is Skyrim, and let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. And last up here, I was heavily debating on whether or not to talk about this one, but here we are. Now, before I get into it, please do not go to this person's channel, and please do not flame them in the comments. This is not what I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm just trying to be constructive with some criticism. So earlier on today, a channel by the name of Matt's Creative put out a video called Mr. Sujano Caught Spreading Misinformation Again about Suyu. They have since changed that title to Mr. Sujano Got Away with Lying Yet Again. So for reference and context here, this is the video I put out yesterday, and I'll play a couple of clips just to showcase the core of what I was saying. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on Suyu, I am just being realistic. If you're a fan of Suyu, if you're excited about it, you may have to temper your expectations. I don't think development on this is going to go as quickly as you might think. So getting back to Suyu, and again I want to point out, I am not betting against Suyu. I'm just saying I don't think development on this one is going to be very fast. So to reiterate here, I specifically said I am not hating on Suyu. I'm not betting against Suyu. And make sure to temper your expectations because development is probably going to take a while. The developers have to learn, understand, and figure out how the code works, and then figure out how to improve it. Matt's Creative unfortunately completely missed my point and took what I said in a completely different direction and manufactured a narrative surrounding it, arguably spreading misinformation of his own. His video is a little over 5 minutes long, and in there he accuses me of spreading misinformation and saying to do some research about Suyu. He goes through Suyu's changelog to prove that they're making great development updates. One of those is simply changing the logo. And then he makes a very interesting statement when he hovers over search fragment navigation. And he says, I don't know what that means. You can simply click on it to find out what it means. So for someone telling me to take some time and do some research, I'm kind of surprised at the hypocrisy of that situation. I mean, he didn't do his research. All you have to do is click on it here and it tells you exactly what this thing is. And it's simply repointing something from Yuzu to Suyu. It's not even a big change. Furthermore, I took a quick peek at his channel here and he's got a video called Panda 3DS, a new 3DS emulator. I would argue Panda 3DS has been out for quite a while. We've known about it for a while. I've talked about it quite a bit on this channel. Now, just over 10 seconds into that video, he makes an incorrect statement saying that Panda 3DS is for Windows only, and he says he's only found a Windows build so far. Interestingly, just a few seconds later, he scrolls right over the Linux and Mac builds, and his mouse touches the Mac build without noticing. Now, Matt, if you're watching this video, I'd argue that it's you that's spreading misinformation. I'm not upset here. I'm just disappointed. You didn't need to do any of this, and I won't be acknowledging any of this stuff moving forward. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.